Well, hey everybody, my name is Matt Kloskowski and I'm here at B&H Photo. I wanted to share with you 4 of my favorite things in the Lightroom Photoshop Creative Cloud photography plan. I think one of the first ones is going to be the Haze feature inside of Lightroom CC. And then when it comes to using Lightroom and Photoshop together, selections are probably one of the biggest reasons we jump over to Photoshop. Other big reason we jump from Lightroom over to Photoshop is going to be content-aware healing. And then finally, Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile is huge. It is a huge part in putting together what you do on your phone and what you do with your DSLR camera and what you do inside of Lightroom, taking all that, putting it together so you have it with all your devices. If you're on an older version of Lightroom, like Lightroom 6 or maybe even an older version of Photoshop, these are things I use every day, and I just figured I'd show you a little bit more about them. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in here. The first one is Dehaze. Now, in the effects panel, you're going to see that we have a dehaze slider, and it works great. If I've got a photo where it's just flat, and as things get off in the distance, you'll actually see it starts to get really flat back there, and we can just crank up our dehaze slider here, and it's going to work great. Now, the problem is if I have a photo with color in it, like something like this photo here, what's going to happen is as I start to increase the dehaze slider, it's gonna dehaze the photo, but it's also going to saturate everything in the photo. So what's nice about this, I'll reset that, is if I go to the brush tool, I have a dehaze slider here. And so what this means is now I can just brush on changes. I'll go ahead and zoom in. And instead of dehazing the entire mountain and the entire sky in the foreground, now I can just paint it right where I want it. So that way it doesn't go in and it doesn't affect the whole photo and start to oversaturate those colors. It really just sticks in with the parts of the photo that I want it to. For the next one, we're going to dive into selections. And I think Lightroom is really good at overall changes to our photos, whether it's going to be exposure and shadows and highlights and color. But what Lightroom doesn't have is a selection tool. If you need it to be really refined in what you're doing, or maybe even take part of one photo and mix it with another photo and replace somebody's background. So that's why we jump over into Photoshop. One of the tools that we have here is called the Quick Selection tool, and what it does is it's basically a brush. So all I would do is just brush over whatever I wanted to make a selection of. You see, it does a good job. It snaps to the edges. It's not going to be perfect, but what you'll find is that'll get us 90% of the way there. Then from there, whenever I have a selection active, I just click on Select and Mask. And this is a newer dialog box inside of Photoshop CC. Refine Edge and Selections has been around for a while, but Select and Mask actually takes it and adds a couple of new features to it as well. One of the features that I use all the time in here is called the Refine Edge brush. So if you look at her hair, and I'll even zoom in for you, you can see, her hair is obviously not well selected. Everything else looks good, but the hair doesn't. Well, with the Refine Edge brush, all I have to do is paint. I don't even really have to know what I'm painting on. I just paint, and you'll see it picks up all of those stray hairs as it goes around. And if you want to see the before and after, you can come up here to the top, just hit the letter P, click that checkbox. But that's what we came in here with. And then just by tracing the outline of her hair, that's what we have now. So it's a huge difference. Then from here, all I have to do is click OK. It gives me a selection, and then I'll copy that. I'll jump over into a different background. I'll paste it in, and now you'll see we can kind of put her and just move her into the position that we need. But the work for the selection was done inside of what Photoshop's tools can do, because you can see there's a lot of detail around her hair, and trying to go in and painstakingly select every piece of hair would have been really difficult. Select and Mask takes care of it for us. Some of the tools out there that have totally saved my butt are the tools that we have for removing distractions. So I usually start inside of Lightroom. We have the spot removal tool, all right? And the way it works is it's essentially a brush, and we can click on spots and little sensor dust areas, and they'll go away. It also has a visualize spots checkbox. And if I turn this on, it lets me see those spots a little bit more. It can help if you have a smaller screen, like a laptop or a tablet, and sometimes those spots are hard to see. But from here, if you have something a little bit larger, Lightroom will still work for it, all right? So if you look at this branch over here, I don't just have to think of things as a spot. This really is a brush, so if I click and drag, I can make that go away. But there's going to be times where I'm going to want to jump over to Photoshop for some bigger things. So as an example, if you take a look, we have a large object protruding from the gentleman's back here. Well, Photoshop has something called content aware. So what we can do is we can take just a simple lasso tool, go make a selection. And it doesn't even have to be perfect. I just kind of lasso around and just drag very loosely around whatever object that I want to remove. Then from there, we head up to the edit menu. We go down to fill. And inside of there, you're going to see the option is called content aware. So we don't have to do anything. There's no settings. All we do is click OK. And just like that, Photoshop makes it go away. So from there, you know, it might totally be gone. You might be good. But other times, there might just be a little bit of an edge left. And that's where you can go grab one of the other tools, like, say, the clone stamp tool. Right? You go grab the clone stamp tool, and you just sample off in one area. And then you can go over and you can just start to paint into another area. And you can see we can finish up and get rid of whatever was left. So we have a lot of options available to us. I think I always start inside of Lightroom, but if I can't get it done inside of Lightroom, that's usually where I'm going to jump into Photoshop to get rid of the big stuff. If you find yourself taking photos with multiple devices, like your phone and your tablet and your DSLR, you want all those photos to live in one place, Lightroom Mobile is the way to go. All right, so the idea here is I created a collection called Colorado. All right, and whether it's a trip or an event, you're taking photos with your phone, but if you bring your camera alone, you want to be able to have access to those photos. So I can have this collection, go inside of it, I can add photos with the little button at the bottom from my camera roll on my phone. The second that I do that, those photos all get pushed up to your Creative Cloud account. Okay, so Lightroom Mobile, no matter where it is, will see that. When I come over here to the desktop, I can see all of those photos. All right, now I brought my DSLR with me. It went through my normal workflow, right? I created a folder for it. It's got all my DSLR photos in it. I went and picked and flagged my favorite photos inside of here. Well, I can take those photos and I can drag those right into my Colorado collection. And now they all get synced up to your Lightroom Mobile account. Okay, so any device that's signed in now sees all of these photos. So it takes away from you like emailing yourself a photo from the desktop over to your phone or something like that so you can share it. When you get back over here, you can of course make any edits. So if I click on a photo, it's got all the editing controls that are actually the same exact editing controls that I have on my computer, and those get synced back and forth. So if I turn it into a black and white here, it gets turned into a black and white here, and vice versa. And then finally, all you got to do is click on your little share icon in the top right corner. You can share it to all your social media channels, or you can save it to your camera roll, which means you could email it or send it out in a text message if you wanted to. So if you are trying to look to get your DSLR and Lightroom on the laptop and the desktop, and you want to try to get all of that and marry it to what you're doing on your phone as well, so those photos are everywhere, Lightroom Mobile is the way to go. Folks, thanks so much for hanging around with me for a few minutes here. These are just some of my favorite little tips and tricks between Lightroom and Photoshop CC. My name is Matt Kloskowski. You can find out more over at mattk.com. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.